So let's talk about our foot position for squatting. Now this would apply to both back squat and front squat, especially if you're going to use a high bar back squat position. This is not so hard and fast applicable to a low bar back squat position, even though it's still a pretty good rule of thumb to establish where your heels should be. Okay, so whenever I'm establishing my squat stance, I want to use my shoulders and hips as reference points. I want you to imagine that there is a line dropping from the outside of your shoulder here all the way down to the ground, and from the inside of the hip all the way down to the ground. Now as those drop down, then they're going to create a box. So we'll do that now. As I drop down from the outside of my shoulder, it's going to come to about here. And then as I drop down from the inside of my hip, it's about here. So I want my foot to fall somewhere within this box. Specifically, I want my heel to be somewhere within this box, all right? Now if I do this on my other side, then it's going to come down about right here, from the inside here. Now I establish about where my feet are going to be. Of course, these aren't perfectly congruent. I'm eyeballing this, but you get the idea. My heels need to fall somewhere within this box. And just like a strike zone, it's pretty wide, but it's easy to be outside of it as well. If I'm way out here, then I'm going to be working at a position where my knees are going to want to turn in. If I'm in here, then I'm going to be too narrow, and it's going to be hard for me to get my hips down into this position. But if I keep my heels somewhere within this box, just let them fall naturally somewhere within this box, and allow my toes to flare out, then I will be in an advantageous position that allows me to keep a good position of my knees over my ankles, and where I can have enough space to allow my hips to drop into the hole and get that nice deep squat. So I'll go ahead and put the bar on my back real quick, and we'll look at what this looks like. Now, you may be an athlete that needs to flare out your feet a lot. Okay, that's okay. The toes falling outside of the box isn't that big of a deal. What we want is the heel inside of that box. So whenever I am in this position, okay, my feet need to be flared out, and I'm going to drop down. As I drop down, you're going to see that my feet point the way for my knees. My knees are always going to track over where the angle of my foot. That's a good thing. The squat is a movement where we need to get the glute activated. The glute is an external rotator, so if my feet are pointing the way for my knees, then they're simply aiding them getting outside. It creates a hole from my hips to drop into in this deep position, okay? From here, I drive into my heels, allowing my knees to go out further. A nice, comfortable position here. I'm going to drive my hips under the bar so that I can activate those glutes and come all the way back up. Now, this is all true if I have this foot position. If I'm too narrow, let's watch what happens. As I go down into this position, it's really hard for me to find the space to get my hips down low. My spine is angled much more forward than it is whenever I'm wider. Okay? On the reverse side, if I'm too wide here, as I go down, my knees are going to want to track inside. Now, whenever I have the knee floating over space like this, if there is any sort of shearing force straight down, that's all on my ligaments. My muscles are not going to help me stabilize that. And your ACL is lax in this position. It's not really under tension, all right? If you've ever seen a rope go loose and then be snapped again, you probably saw it tear. That's the most likely conditions. So we don't want our knee inside of the position of our heels. Again, if we keep our feet within this box, then we're going to have a really good position for our squat. Our spine is going to be vertical, our hips are going to have space, and our knees are going to track correctly.